At the line of actual control, these are visuals of Indian soldiers pushing back Chinese troops transgressing in the Tri-Junction area. Now, if you notice, neither the Indian soldiers nor the Chinese soldiers are armed. But as the Chinese soldiers try to push their way, the Indian soldiers politely but very firmly push them back. Both India and China have filmed this entire sequence. The situation remains tense. No, get back. That is what the Indian soldiers tell the Chinese troops as they try to violate the sanctity of the line of actual control. We will tell you more about this on the broadcast. India Today has all the details of when this happened, where this happened, and why this happened. We'll also talk about the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, where instead of celebrating Eid, some stone pelters in South Kashmir targeted security forces. Innocent families returning from the mosque after Eid prayers were caught unawares. Security forces succeeded in pushing back these pelters. But there has been a sharp decline in the number of stone pelting incidents. Why? We will tell you that on the show. Provocations on Eid in the Kashmir Valley. First, stone pelters take to the streets, attacking CRPF personnel in Anantnag. Then, Jamaat-ud-Dawa terrorists caught on camera, praising and praying for Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists who attacked a CRPF party in Srinagar. Finally, it's the Indian Army showing the way, paving the path of brotherhood in these turbulent times in the valley, distributing sweets on Eid. As Pakistan again attempts to sponsor trouble on Eid, our forces show the way. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Washington, D.C. Later tonight, he will be meeting the US President Donald Trump. India may buy 22 Guardian unmanned aerial vehicles. Now, this would be a $2 billion deal that China clearly will not be very happy about. On the show, we'll tell you what this visit means for India-US relations. So, action-packed 30 minutes lined up. Let's begin. So, in less than 5 hours from now, the much-anticipated meeting of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump. It's a power-packed visit in Washington, D.C. Modi's meeting with the U.S. Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, is about to visit. He will call on the Prime Minister, and then the U.S. Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, will also call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi before he heads out to White House to meet the U.S. President Donald Trump. There is a dinner for the Prime Minister, the first for any head of government ever since Donald Trump took over, and the US administration is explaining this, that this shows the close relations between India and the United States of America. India Today's Geeta Mohan, our foreign affairs editor, joins us live from Washington, D.C. for more on this big story. Geeta, what's on the cards? What's the mood like on ground? This big Modi and Donald Trump meeting, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump meeting, will the Guardian drones be one of the key takeaways?
Well, Gaurav, the mood over here, down here in Washington, D.C. is upbeat. We've been talking to a lot of people, foreign policy experts, people from the state, from the U.S. administration, as also from the Indian administration. Many are calling it ice-breaking meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump. But I believe, speaking to all the people here in the administration, U.S. and India, as also the fact that there have been meetings with the foreign secretary Secretary and the state administration, the U.S. State Department administration officials, it is very clear that it is going to be beyond just ice-breaking moment. I'm being joined over here right outside Hotel Willard, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting with Secretary of State and the Defence Secretary in a while from now. I'm being joined by Ritika Batra from the FICCI, who will be discussing who will be discussing the entire issue of trade and commerce. Ritika, if I could come to you. There is a lot when it comes to, and lot at stake when it comes to the economic cooperation between India and the United States of America. But the fact is, H-1B visas and the immigration policies, these are areas of concern that have been raised with the Indian Prime Minister, as also the fact that we're learning it will be in a part of the discussions.
Yeah, I mean, H-1B, of course, is an issue, but I don't think it's an issue that would be of prime importance as far as this conversation is concerned. It'll come up, of course, because it's a sticky issue. But I would like to say that our Prime Minister has always been accommodating of the expectations of the heads of state when he meets with them. And if this relationship is an icebreaker, which is going to lead to transactional relationship, I think we'll do a good job, because there are already conversations around GE bagging one of the biggest locomotive production projects in India in Patna, or for that matter, unarmed drones being talked about as far as General Atomics is concerned. It's a trade deal worth, it's a defense deal worth $3 billion. So yes, I mean, transactions, ice breaking, camaraderie, building a rapport, I think all of these things would be on the table.
Well, all of these things on the table, Gaurav, but the fact is that the position from which the Indian administration, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be speaking, is a position of advantage, that it is going to be a relationship, a two-way street and not a one-way street when it comes to ties between India and the United States of America. And that's a view that will be put forth to the US administration, that there is a lot that India has to offer. There are H-1B visa concerns. Ritika, there are concerns when it comes to H-1B visas. There are concerns when it comes to the trade deficit that US is impacted with. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Gaurav, is going to talk about the fact that every one H-1B visa that's given to an Indian professional creates 4 more jobs. So the job creation bit, indirect, yes, but the job creation bit that Donald Trump is worried about is taken care of.
Well, yes and no, because these figures are always debatable, but goes without saying that it's not only the H-1B figures that will be discussed. A lot of other figures are also on the table. For example, in year 2015-2016, the Indian students studying in the US have contributed $5 billion worth value add to the American economy. That's not a small figure. American exports from America to India supports 260,000 jobs. That's also a good figure to look at.
Win relation, that's the point that's coming across, isn't it? It's a win-win relation for both. But when it comes to terror, can India and the United States succeed in cornering Pakistan-sponsored terror at source? And I want to quickly bring in Ambassador Rajiv Dogra for more on this. Ambassador Dogra, it's a huge relationship, not concerned just with any one aspect, but I want to focus on Pakistan-sponsored terror. Can we expect a key takeaway, especially because Pakistan's involved in spreading terror, not just in India, but also in Afghanistan, and directly affecting US interests in Afghanistan?
Not just US interests in Afghanistan, but also US lives in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Because any number of attacks on US Army personnel over the course of last 15 years or so can be directly attributed to Pakistan's support to terrorists, and in some cases Pakistan's active involvement in them. So US has reason to be concerned, and that is why it has put a price on heads of even people like Hafiz Saeed, because their actions or their misactions affect them. But at the same time, we should also be realistic enough to realize that American lives in Afghanistan are also dependent on the supply line which comes through Pakistan.
Yes.
And they do not want that to be affected. Plus, there is also this bogey of nuclear armed Pakistan, which somehow America is not able to cross over. Let me also take back you in time to Eisenhower in 1957. He was exasperated, and at one point he said, I do not know why we keep on giving money to Pakistan when it is acting against our interests.
Oh, absolutely, and it's shocking that from 1957 till 2017, America doesn't appear to have learnt its lessons, or has it? We'll try and figure that out. Ambassador Dogra, stay with me for a moment, because Pakistan continues to create problems for India, and not just in Jammu and Kashmir. But for the moment, let's talk about what's happening in Kashmir on the auspicious occasion of Eid. Stone pelters emerged once again. They were carrying placards and banners of a designated global terrorist, Hafiz Mohammed Saeed. They were waving Pakistani flags. More provocations followed. They were praising terrorists like Burhan Wani and Zakir Musa. Take a look at this ground report.
Eid, a festival of peace and brotherhood. A festival that is celebrated with pomp and fervour across the country. But as the nation celebrated Eid ul-Fitr, celebrations across the valley in Jammu and Kashmir were marred by clashes between protesters and security forces in many parts. A CRPF camp in Janglat Mandi area of Anantnag was attacked by stone pelters on Monday morning. 5 police personnel, including 1 officer and 1 civilian, were injured.
ईदगाह मैदान है जहां पर बड़ी तादाद में लोग जुटते हैं ईद की नमाज के लिए, लेकिन जो मिसक्रिएंट और काफ़ी बड़ी तादाद में स्टोन पेल्टर्स थे, उन्होंने नमाज शुरू होने से पहले ही यहां पर प्रोटेस्ट और भयंकर पत्थरबाजी शुरू कर दी, जिसमें कि हमारे ट्रूप्स ने बहुत संयम बरता, काफ़ी देर तक इंतजार किया कि ताकि नमाज पूरी हो जाए, और नमाज पूरी होने दी। उसके बाद ये प्रदर्शन जो था और उग्र हो गया और बहुत ज़बरदस्त पत्थरबाजों द्वारा हमारे जवानों पर की गई, जिसमें हमारे कुछ जवान घायल भी हुए।
But that's not all. In an ultimate provocation, these terror backers organized a march with protesters brandishing posters praising Burhan Wani and 2611 mastermind Hafiz Saeed. Pakistan's flag and posters supporting terror commander Zakir Musa were raised during the major clashes in Anantnag, Pulwama and Shopian. The valley had remained tense after the death of DSP Ayub Pandit, who was lynched by an angry mob outside Jamia Masjid in Srinagar. Only days after, the police asked its personnel to avoid Eid prayers in public places. The advisory stated that police personnel should only offer prayers in mosques located in district police lines or in protected mosques. These provocations by the so-called protectors of Islam sent ripples of anger across the country.
This is just again a reiteration of what I have been saying for quite some time, that these self-styled protagonists of Kashmir are neither faithful to the people of Kashmir, nor faithful to the cause of freedom that they claim to perpetuate or project, nor even loyal to Islam.
I think it is extremely unfortunate that our enemies across the border are leaving no stone unturned to harm the lives and the happiness of so many people. It just goes to show that these people do not belong to any religion, they don't respect anybody, and these terrorists are another breed apart, and the strictest action should be taken and everybody should boycott them, and I think they are very soon getting ostracized in the entire world.
The opposition had a different opinion. They blamed the government for not being able to win the confidence of the people of Kashmir.
National government, federal government or the state government, they have totally failed to take the people of the state into confidence, and they have also totally miserably failed to instill the confidence of the people of the state. Otherwise, this has never happened in the past.
Even a holy day like Eid couldn't stop these Pak proxies from spewing their venomous religious hate.
Jammu Kashmir Police Sub-Inspector Firoz Ahmed Dar killed. DSP Ayub Pandit lynched by mob. But now there is impact in the valley. The people are finally speaking up against these militants, these terrorists and stone pelters. The report suggests that today, on the day of Eid, the incident of stone pelting reduced by 50%. that's a clear indication that how local support have completely dropped out to these stone pelters. The people of Kashmir are now standing up and speaking against these stone pelters and the anti-nationals. In Srinagar with Tariq Lone, this is Ashutosh for India Today.
I quickly want to once again cut across to the United States of America, to Washington, D.C. There's an important meeting. The U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis, there you see these images, calling on Prime Minister Narendra Modi for this important meeting. This is very important in more ways than one. India could end up being the first non-NATO country to buy the Guardian drone, 22 of these unmanned aerial vehicles, which will give India long endurance in the Indian Ocean region. There you see the two delegations are now engaging. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra with me on this. Ambassador Dogra, so that official leg of the meeting with the Defense Secretary James Mattis calling on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that begins. Your take on key military takeaways, if at all, from this visit?
Well, as you said, this is going to be a ground-sitting meeting, in the sense that only a few days back, President Trump had authorized Mr. Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, to take decisions concerning Afghanistan, including force increase or force variation, which is unprecedented, because no president of the United States has ever given such kind of powers to a defense secretary. So Mattis now has a very central role to play in terms of what happens in Afghanistan, in terms of what US intentions are in Afghanistan. The rest, of course, the equipment supply, whether it's the aircraft or drone without missiles, weapons, and so on, that's a different issue. That's more in the technical realm. But I think the vital issue, the strategic issue, which is what Trump has also hinted at in his Twitter, is the larger picture in Afghanistan,
and that is where India could play a key role, because India is not just talking about its big investments for the development of Afghanistan. Afghanistan, a key ally of India, again suffering from Pakistan-sponsored terror. The recent terror attacks, 150 innocent people, including a large number of children, killed, and Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani blamed Pakistan. General Nicholson, the US commander for Resolute Forces, an American general of NATO in Afghanistan, again blames Pakistan-sponsored terror for all the unrest in Afghanistan. So do we see a meeting of the minds, and perhaps more convergence means more pressure on Pakistan?
Well, let me also add to what you're saying. Just a couple of days back, there was a rocket attack which landed in the embassy compound, the residence of the Indian ambassador in Kabul. A few days before that, there was a truck bomb, and it exploded, killed many people, unfortunately many Afghans. But one of the objectives of that truck bomb was, it is rumored, the Indian embassy. So India is directly involved in what is happening in Afghanistan, and what is happening today is not very pleasant, because 30% or above is either directly or indirectly controlled by Taliban, and Pakistan seems to be quite satisfied that its game plan vis-a-vis Afghanistan and against America seems to be succeeding.
Will it remains the big question, but you know, Ambassador, stay with me for a moment. I also want to talk about China. There is tension, at least in the Tri-Junction area, along the India-China line of actual control. Take a look at the visuals we are about to show you. This is a video of a provocation by Chinese forces in the Tri-Junction area. Tri-Junction is India, China and Bhutan borders meeting at one point. Now in this area you can see, this is a video of Chinese troops illegally trying to come into Indian territory, but what you also notice, it's a Chinese patrol, it's unarmed. Indian forces are pushing them back. Again, unarmed, polite, but very firm, not permitting this transgression. There is tension in this area. What we're also told in another area, one Indian bunker was allegedly either damaged or destroyed. Chinese, what sources tell India today, have also made a similar complaint in another sector about a Chinese bunker or some damage to some Chinese structure. We are not too sure about details since it's all in the realm of sources and no official word. So, Ambassador Dogra, what do you make of this, Chinese transgression and India, this video emerging of India pushing back the Chinese soldiers, both unarmed?
Well, since the date is not known of this particular video, I don't think it'll be quite correct to speculate very heavily on it. But purely in terms of conjecture, the stoppage of Mansarovar Yatra,
yes,
that is not an ordinary step. China would have definitely meant it as a strong signal to India. So things are not quite normal, to put it in diplomatic language, and I think we should be worried as to why this is happening now and why a series of steps are being taken by China, not just here, not just stoppage of Mansarovar Yatra, but also deliberate articles being put out, deliberate statements being put out that they are watching Indo-American talks very closely, and they'll be very concerned if India takes any steps along with America in terms of South China Sea.
So now, if China is concerned, no, that's very interesting what you say. So if China is concerned, means China is worried, and if China is openly hostile to India when it comes to either the nuclear suppliers group or Maulana Masood Azhar, that India perhaps should intensify engagement, not just with the US, but also with maybe Japan and other Australia, other navies in these waters.
Well, I think one has to tread with a lot of care, because one should not come into a confrontational posture with China, because in the end we are alone. America is not going to come and fight for us, nor is Japan capable of fighting for us in Himalayas.
Okay.
So we should not get into a situation which puts us in a confrontational mode with China. But at the same time, I think...
So politely and firmly, like our soldiers are doing on ground, step by step, inch by inch, retake territory, retake ground, regain ground. Perhaps that's the message at that border. But I want to leave you on a happy note. I want to leave you with images of the Indian Army distributing sweets on the streets, not just of Srinagar, but across South Kashmir. This is the Indian Army that's celebrating Eid, and the locals taking part in it very clearly, very clearly defeating Pakistan-sponsored terror, or at least showing an image to Pakistan-sponsored terror in the valley.